Hello, everyone. Mr. Nobody here. And today I just want to talk about a somewhat hyperbolic question. And that question is modern media evil? Now, this is something, of course, that people have said for a long time. And even some of my favorite books, like The Closing of the American Mind, you get someone who's like, rock music is evil. And of course, to those of us who grew up with it, we're like, I don't know. But then on the other hand, looking back now, and especially as a parent and having recently watched some recaps of the VMA Awards, you're like, oh, yeah, maybe rock music is evil. Doesn't seem to be working out great for the people doing it necessarily. But I do want to talk about this subject. And so here's my take on whether modern media is evil. So TV, for example, TV, like many other things, it's a tool. It's a powerful tool, but it's only as good or as bad as the people who wield it and the purposes they apply to it. Now, usually when we complain about the effects of a technology, we're really only complaining about people, about what ourselves or someone else has used it for. As with a child, if you're given tools that outstrip your own ability to responsibly use them, they can be a great harm. And it might have been better if you'd never had them. That's why we don't give children chainsaws, because what they're going to do with it is probably going to, the tool outstrips their ability to control it. We had actually a terrible example of this here in my hometown, where someone gave a fully automatic weapon to a small child. And when they pulled it, there's an enormous amount of kickback, but especially if you hold it down and if you're surprised you're a child using it, the kickback keeps happening. And it kicked back so much that he shot the shooting instructor that was behind him right in the head. So that's the case. This isn't me going on some anti-gun rant, and in fact, you'll notice I'm using one of the arguments that they've used that guns don't kill people. I do. No, of course that's not. But you understand the point here. The point is just if you give someone a tool that exceeds the capacity of their ability to control it, you can get some bad results. But even if you give it to someone who has control over it, you're only going to get as good results as the people who are actually wielding it. So how do we weigh the costs of those who were harmed by some technology against those who benefited and the good things that were done or could be done? Are there some powers, are there some technologies that simply outstrip our ability to manage them in the long term? Because that's certainly possible. As much as we think of ourselves, maybe we aren't gods, maybe our capacities aren't unlimited, maybe we could actually create things that simply outstrip our ability to manage them in any long-term scenario. So are there some abilities that humans, as fragile and limited and self-centered as we are, and short in our horizons as we are, that we just simply weren't really meant to have? And of course, science fiction stories ask that question again and again and again. Are there powers so absolute that they cannot but cripple or corrupt us, or make us dependent or decadent or abusive of them? Are there things like that? Now, it is certainly possible. We might create things whose power and temptation we simply can't manage, and that we can only avoid. Things that take such a powerful advantage of our instinctive selves that our conscious selves just can't manage them. Cocaine, some of those addictive substances, that is an obvious example. It's something that is so strong in its ability to manipulate your physical and underlying psychoactive forces that your rational brain can't manage it. Your only hope is to just avoid it. But it's not just things like cocaine or pornography, as some people would say these days. Alcohol has been pretty hard to manage too. Extremes of wealth and fame, gambling, alcohol, pornography, like so many different things. There's so many things that consistently take hold of people, of us, in ways that go far beyond our ability to regulate them. So automatic weapons and cars might actually be more manageable in some ways than some of the social or personal technologies. Cars are also terribly dangerous. But even those things that we think we can manage, like, say, a handgun or a car, that are dangerous, but are at least just a machine that we can pick up and put down, those still come with a lot of innate costs, partly because of what they are, but mostly because of what we are, plus what we could do with something like that. There's a crazy amount we could do with something like that. And you might ask yourself, is there more you could do with a car, or is there more you could do with the internet? That's a tough question. Actually, it's hard to say which is the more powerful human entity ultimately. Now, we can manage these things to some degree, but that kind of power, that kind of force amplifier will always be a test, and it'll constantly going beyond the limits of what we can actually manage. So social media is maybe an example of a technology, much like nuclear weapons, that fundamentally outstrips our capabilities to properly use it. Maybe that's a further extension of human reach than we are just able to regulate. Creatures who arose in an environment of such limited capability and that have the natures and passions of a limited creature like this, godlike extension is naturally tempting to such a creature. But the possession of such a power is not something that we're well fitted to actually manage. So we have all the things that would drive it towards us, but we don't actually possess the things innately that would allow us to possess those kinds of abilities. So our TV and its modern media descendants, whatever you want to look at on the internet, are they good or bad? As a technology, as a tool whose measure is power and effectiveness and capability and refinement, their powers are astounding. The power of the internet is astounding. It extends your ability to see things and affect things to a degree undreamt of in human history. But all those tools will only ever be used by creatures as good and bad as us. And by their power, only our goodness and badness will be amplified. So when you look at the world and you say, wow, look at these terrible things happening in the world, and you want to blame the internet, or whatever you want to blame, TV, music, anything, any technology, cars, guns, anything, you're not meeting in those things the greatness or the corruption of anything but ourselves, grown large by our own largesse. Thanks, and I'll talk to you next time.